Welcome to the Quantum Alignment Show. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. And I just want to begin by thanking Karen Curry Parker for all she does through her beautiful, expansive heart and mind to bring so much awakened knowledge to humanity. And thank you for this opportunity, Karen. So, I've just written a book, The Centers in Human Design, and really the thrust behind the book, the bottom line drive in it was to talk about the centers in terms of the quantum world. So I thought I would take some time today and share a little bit about that with you. And I just want to begin with joining together in the quantum field and realizing and recognizing that whoever's listening right now and whoever's going to listen in the future, we're all right here, right now, being impacted by each other. And so let's begin by just taking a moment and connecting to ourselves, dropping into ourselves, our unique puzzle piece, and see if we might, in our journey together today, open a portal of transformation for each other, for the world, really, through our inquiry of human design and the centers. So my intention is to increase the awe and appreciation and understanding of the magnitude of who we are. We've kind of trapped ourselves into an identification as very small beings. I think of that story. I'm going to get it wrong, so just bear with me, but the way I'm remembering it is the story of the lion who was raised by, I'm going to say mice. I think it was a different creature, but I'm going to say mice. And then as it grew up and it looked into the mirror of the watering hole, saw that it was a lion, saw that it was different. That's I think part of what we're up to with human design is this very small identification of ourselves as our egos, as our beliefs, as who we know ourselves to be. And part of the shift we're inviting as we inquire into human design is, who are we really? And for me, that's where the quantum field comes through, and has everything to do with our centers. So again, let's just pause, drop in, feel our seat on the chair, open into our belly center. Imagine that we're joined in a circle of golden light. One giant expanding essence of golden nectar. Just take a moment and see, what is your intention for our time together? What would you like to get? And maybe if you're here, you can just put that in the chat so I can see that. But what is your intention? What is your hope as we meet for this precious hour? Space to decompress. Great. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with the quantum world, actually. Thank you. To connect, to learn, to enhance my human experience. It's beautiful. Anyone else, feel free to put in the chat. I don't have the Facebook chat, but I do have the webinar chat here that I can look at. This is a quote from chapter, the preface of my book. Uncertainty is in the air. We're undergoing a profound and powerful period of destabilization. Can human design help us navigate these waters? I think so. In fact, I believe it was given to us at this time for this very purpose. This brings in an idea that is dear to my heart, that human design is a terma. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, a terma is a treasure that's hidden. It could be hidden in someone's mind. It could be hidden in a mountain. It could be hidden in the waters. There's all kinds of places it could be hidden, but it's a treasure that's hidden, that's revealed at a particular time to help humanity. Now, if we think of Ra's story, right? He was Canadian off the coast of Spain at the harmonic convergence. And he came back to his cabin, and these light beings downloaded this system. I'm calling it a terma, this system to help with the evolution of humanity. Let me get this going. So what these beings said in this, what I'm calling a terma, is that each of one of us is a piece of the giant puzzle of humanity. And I know some of you, this is, you know this information, but bear with me and see if you can open from a new level, from a felt experiential sense. See if you can just take it in again, not stay in curiosity. So that's the invitation, if you want to. That each of us is a piece of this giant puzzle of humanity, and each one of us is perfectly designed. So that's the fundamental teaching. And that with human design, with this understanding of human design, when we know who we are and we know what our puzzle pieces are, then we can live our design. When we live our puzzle piece, we fulfill our dharma. We fulfill what we're here to do. And when we do that, we feel good and humanity benefits. On the other hand, if we're living somebody else's puzzle piece, we think we should be like them, we suffer, and the world loses out on what we're here to bring. So that's a bad picture, right? So the bottom line is we matter, we deeply matter. They say in Tibetan Buddhism that, we have this very precious human birth. It's very rare and very precious. And to take advantage of who we are and what we're here to bring during this disruptive time. I mean, I think there have been disruptive times throughout history, don't get me wrong, but we're at a particularly interesting, destabilizing time. And in human design, we're in the precursor of 2027 when there's real shifts coming. So we're seeing the beginning of those shifts. So we're here at this time because we have something to give, something to offer, each one of us. And each one of our puzzle pieces is needed in this time. So then we come to the question, well, what is our puzzle piece, and how do we live it? Right? And that's where human design, the map and the understanding of human design comes in. So let's just begin with a very simple, for those of you who are brand new here, and a remembrance for those of you who are well skilled in this, that human design is based on our birth time, and it's based on birth time, date, and place. So it's got an astrological foundation to it, and it's based in the I Ching, the ancient Chinese divination system. And we'll talk about that in a minute, I think. It's based on the Hindu chakra system, the Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics. Quantum physics. So this is a human design chart. When we put our birth time into a computer program, we can also figure it out manually, but we've got computers now. We put our birth information, time, date, and place into a computer program. We get where the planets were at the time of our birth and which of those hexagrams from the I Ching they're in, right? And then just a pith here, time of our birth, and also 3 months prior to our birth. Got the conscious, time of our birth, and the unconscious, 3 months prior to our birth. When we say in human design, our soul landed. So this is our puzzle piece. We take those hexagrams and we put them on this body graph. And you can see in this body graph that some of those places are colored in and some of them are open. And this is our quantum puzzle piece. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a bit. From this, we get a whole lot of information. Those of you who are working with your design know that. We get to find out what kind of puzzle piece we are. We get to find out how our puzzle piece operates in the best in the world. How do we use our energy? How do we interface with other people? How can we speak to be heard? You know, how do we connect to each other? How do we show up individually? How do we show up in a group? All kinds of information comes from this picture, this body graph. Now, when we think about living our puzzle piece, it's really important to understand that with this terma, there's a lot of different streams of understanding. Just like when we've got Christianity, right? We've got the Bible, and we've got the stream of looking at that download. Is probably not a good word, but the information that Christ brought through. Let's just say that the frequency, the understanding, the new understanding, not an eye for an eye any longer, right? Love thy neighbor. There's a whole transmission that came, and different people understood that and looked at it through different lenses. So we had the Catholics, the Episcopalians, the Methodists, the Evangelicals, the Unitarians, right? And depending on who you were, it's going to show up differently. Same thing with the Buddhists, right? They had the termas, and then if you were in the Niguma tradition, you might look at it through a very a path of study. Whereas if you were with the Kagyu tradition, for example, it's a practiced tradition. You interface with the material through practices. In Hinduism, they say there's 7 paths up the mountain. So there's Bhakti Yoga, the path of the heart. There's Jnana Yoga, the path of the mind. There's Hatha Yoga, the path of the body, right? All going to the same place. But you get there in different ways and you process the information in different ways. So, and we know this from quantum physics as well, right? What lens you look through is going to impact what you see. If you're looking for a particle, you're going to see a particle. If you're looking for a wave, you're going to see a wave. So this is just my transparency. I'm in the stream, the lineage of Karen Curry Parker, who studied with Ra and really under the guidance of Ra was taught to interface with the body graph from her own knowing, from her own response to it. And that's what she passes on and teaches, that the body graph is a living system, and that each of us have our own way of understanding and meeting and knowing it. Now, her particular stream, I would say, is the path of the heart. And it's the understanding that we're entering into a catalytic conversation, so that human design is a path of transformation. It's a living, vital, alive path. So that's what I'm presenting, and that's the spirit from which I wrote my book. So let's come back to this idea of human design as a terma. So here we have this knowledge. I come to it and I'm meeting it just like you're meeting it. Each one of us is meeting it from who our puzzle piece is. and we're getting insight into a certain aspect. So each of us is shining our own light onto the puzzle piece. So I really want to just pause and underscore that you're going to have your way of seeing this. This is my lens that I'm offering. And just put a yes in the chat if you are following what I'm talking about, if this is making sense to you, that you are bringing your own light to the chart and to your understanding. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of yeses. Yeah. So today we're going to look through how I see the terma, and my book was born out of my interface with that terma. So the way I see it, how do we live our puzzle piece? That's the big question. The puzzle piece is information. It's left brain information, but with it comes a transmission. With it comes a download of energy and understanding that's beyond. Like we could say the words, love your neighbor. Well, that's great, right? But to live that, to practice that is a whole other story, right? We could say, oh yeah, you're a generator, you have sustainable energy. But to live that in integrity and in coherence, that is that's a path. Human design is a path in my book. So first we have to understand it. I'm a generator. I've got an open head, an open ajna, right? We have to understand it. And then we step into the act of meeting it. So that's where, in my view, we enter the quantum world. When we meet our puzzle piece, when we meet our design, we enter the quantum world. Each of us, I talked about each of us is looking at this from our own lens, from our own vantage. And my invitation now is to really take the rest of the time we're together and shine the light on your puzzle piece, on each of our puzzle pieces. To do that, I'm going to look at, from my lens, I'm going to look at definition and openness, and I'm going to look at the centers. So our puzzle piece is the body graph, it's a map. Yeah, it's a map, kind of like it's language, it's an understanding, but it's also a living reflection and representation of our quantum body. So I just want to pause there for a moment and invite you, if you know your chart, just to imagine that you're a quantum being, and that your chart is your quantum self. So we're going to be nudging towards that more and more. We know ourselves as physical bodies. We know we have, maybe some of us know we have kind of an emotional body, an emotional way of navigating the world. And, many of us, I'm guessing most of us know we have an energetic body, which has different layers to that. Like there's, you go to get acupuncture and you've got meridians. You can feel, or at least I can feel the energy moving through my body. You go, I've used homeopathy, and, at a frequency level, things shift. Doing body work, feeling a field, there's all kinds of ways that we are aware that we have an energetic body. But I think that many of us have not claimed our energetic body in the way that we have claimed and identified with our physical body. And I feel like this is a huge mistaken identity, that we limit ourselves when, again, I talked about this with the lion, we limit ourselves when we identify as a physical body. We're in a shoe that's too small for us. And we can't actually afford to do that at this time, I don't believe. We can't get away with it. So the task becomes, from my view, to understand and meet our quantum body, that energetic body. So when we talk about the quantum field, we're talking about time and space collapsing. We're talking about infinite possibility. I looked up the definitions, and it's, one of the definitions is systems with an infinite number of degrees of freedom. So the possibility when we step into our puzzle piece as a quantum body is freedom, basically. Our puzzle piece is an electromagnetic, multidimensional body graph puzzle piece. Now, how I see that and want to talk to that is we have both definition, right? We have the places in our body, in our chart, our body graph that are defined. See, wherever it's colored, that's our definition. That could be a center, that could be a channel, or that could be what we call a hanging gate. So that's where we know ourselves. That's where we're grounded in ourselves. I call it our form body. It's the place in traditional human design where we're broadcasting information. It's our out-breath. It's how, if this is a giant quantum puzzle piece that we're all connected to in multidimensional ways, right? Not flatsy, not a flat puzzle piece, but a quantum mixing. This is where we're breathing into the field. We're breathing ourselves, who we are, into this quantum puzzle piece. It's also, again, this is from my light shining. It's also a place of where we have privilege, right? Where we have access. We have consistent access to our resources. Now, I want to talk about that for a second. Where we have privilege, we often are unaware of. Like, for instance, here, there's the privilege with this sacral of sustainable energy. This is not somebody's just asking, this is not my chart. This is the chart of Angela Luria, who is the angel that got me to write books, enabled me, gave me the opportunity and the structure to write and to publish. So where we have privilege, we have access to that. But privilege can be misused, right? And we can, even though we have privilege, we may not be skillful with it. And I'll get to that in a minute. So our form bodies, our definition in our chart, operate within time and space. So let's see what I'm talking about. So from the perspective of definition being our form body, it's also where we live in duality. So if we think in quantum physics, is it a particle or is it a wave? Like we're both the openness and the definition. And I'm going to get to the openness in a second. We're both particle and wave, right? We're both, we're all of it. So when we operate in duality, and this is what I'm bringing that conversation of possibility of one way of looking at this, that when we're connected to our definition, we're operating in duality. So duality is like a stick. It's like positive and negative, right? Duality is like I have energy or I don't have energy. Duality is like I have a good mindset. This is the mindset gate, or I have a bad mindset. Duality is if you have a defined emotional solar plexus, which she doesn't. Duality is wanting something or wanting to avoid something, right? So if we're looking at, okay, so this is my duality, this is what I'm working with inside of me, my definition I'm working with in duality, how do I go to a quantum level with my definition, right? And the way we meet that duality is go to the meta level, to get off the stick. And that requires shifting our awareness from identifying with the definition to identifying with awareness of our definition. Now, let me just back up here for a second. So if we have a defined sacral, for example, and I did just get a question from a reflector, and we're getting to the openness in just a second, and I'll speak to that. If we have a defined sacral, we can have a knee-jerk, something, a yes comes into our field, we have a knee-jerk yes to that. But that might not be the best, might not have all the information for that yes, right? I'm making a muddle here, and I don't mean to. I want to keep this simple. When we're in awareness, we have choice. We can activate that sacral, or we can wait with that sacral. Let's say I have a yes for chocolate ice cream, coconut bliss. I love coconut bliss. I love dark chocolate coconut bliss. Let's say I have a yes for that. But let's say I'm celebrating Lent. If any of you are I'm not, but if any of you are celebrating Lent, let's just say I'm celebrating Lent and I've gone off chocolate until Easter. Well, I'm getting a yes for the chocolate, right? I'm caught in that duality. I want something, right? To go to awareness, yeah, I have a yes for that, and I'm not going to follow that yes. That's how we work with our duality. That's how we work with our definition. Just put a yes in the chat if that's making any sense to you. Because people don't usually talk about it this way, but totally relate. Yes. Okay, I'm getting some yeses. All right, cool. So let's shift to openness for a moment. Now, so I got a question, like, how does this relate to me as a reflector? Let's be clear. I'm talking mostly about the centers, but we all have openness and definition. Even a reflector has definition. So you're looking at your definition, if you're a reflector, in your gates, right? For the rest of us, for the 99%, 99 point something percent of us, yes, we're looking at the gates and the channels, but it's the centers in my book are big God portals, which I'll get to in a minute. So the openness in this paradigm, as I look at this terma, is the formless aspect of ourselves. It's where we don't have a form body. It's the energy aspect of ourselves, right? Like, we're made up of space. We're totally made up of space. We could say, I'm kind of playing with this idea, it's the wave aspect of ourself. It's mutable, it's movable. That defined aspect of ourself is not as flexible, right? It doesn't have the ease of transition, of movement, of the movement of thoughts or the movement of emotions. It's not as flexible. It's grounded, but it's not as flexible. It's got a ground, which we totally appreciate. Love the definition, right? Gives us ground, gives us a sense of, oh, I know myself in that way. It's where we're receiving. It's the in-breath. We're taking in the people, the thoughts, the ideas from the rest of the puzzle piece and from the planets where they're transiting. I also say it's the absence of privilege. Now, I know people don't usually talk about it this way. The analogy I like to use, if we think of definition as male privilege for a second, I'm on an airplane trying to put my suitcase in the cabinet above, and it's a little heavier than it should be. I can't pick it up and put it up there. My wife and I have to pick it up and put it together, right? Whereas a guy, typically, can just pick it up and put it there very graciously, often does. So with openness, we have to be more skillful. It's like being a woman in a man's world, right? We have to be smarter. It's the receptive. It doesn't impact the field in the same penetrating way. It's not the out breath, it's the in breath. It's the womb within which creation occurs. So again, if this is making sense to you, just please post yes in the chat so I know I'm not in my own little world.
Robin on Facebook, Lima said, "Oh, I think I'm getting it. You can't control what you take in, but you can control what you put out." Privilege.
Right. So thank you for that, Cindy, because we're going to get to that piece. That's actually exactly where we're headed. So the open centers are places where they're filters. We need to filter what comes in, right? That's part of the skill of how do we navigate this openness, this quantum field with all this stuff happening. How do we stabilize our openness, right? The ego likes our definition. It doesn't care whether it's positive or negative. It doesn't care. It's something, right? We like the places we have some place to hold on to. In the openness, the ego doesn't have anything to hold on to. And so it will grab hold of those thoughts, beliefs, feelings, values, identities, words, energy systems, fears, adrenalized pressure to do something. But that's another place in this quantum picture where we really take on a mistaken identity, right? This is where in traditional human design, you can be conditioned, right? So what happens if we clean the filters of these open centers? What happens if we have a way to be connected to our quantum self that is so large that whatever toxicity comes in, it doesn't mess with us? That's the direction we're headed here, with understanding and meeting. There's two things. I just want to say this over and over again. Two things. We have to understand our design, and then we have to meet our design, right? So we're going to do a little process together in a minute here to start to do that. So somebody just asked, I just want to pause here and answer this. Am I meaning the difference between choosing to listen to the body's response or accessing higher consciousness? So the body's response is automatic. For the most part, most of us are not at a place where we are even I think my experience of people who are awake also, their bodies have their own life. Yeah. So we are talking about accessing higher consciousness. You could say the quantum field is a field of higher consciousness. I think we could say that. We could say that we're looking for aligning ourselves at the highest level of coherence with our openness and our definition in our quantum puzzle piece. So we begin by understanding what our puzzle piece is. Do we have a defined head? Do we have an open head? Where are we defined? Where are we open? How do we operate in the world, right? I'm going to zoom in for the rest of our time here on the centers themselves and talk about the centers as God portals. So I talked about definition as learning how to work with our duality of ourselves. I've got a defined head. Okay, I've got a defined head. I think within a bandwidth. I don't have a defined head. I'm just saying. I'm generating ideas, whether I'm aware of it or not. I may have negative thoughts or positive thoughts, right? My job in a quantum kind of world to align at my highest level could be to witness my thoughts, not act on my thoughts necessarily, not speak my thoughts necessarily. I can't stop the thoughts. The thoughts are here. The thoughts are happening, right? But I can become, I can shift my relationship to the thoughts rather than identifying with my thoughts. I can open to a wider field. So let's just take a moment, everybody, and picture your chart. Do you have an open head or do you have a defined head? If you have a defined head, can you sense into your defined head at a felt level and feel the definition? Like get to know your body with a defined head in a very visceral, physical way. Meanwhile, if you have an open head, can you allow yourself to sense into, at a felt sense, what it's like to have space, a mind of space, a mind where information is flowing in. I'm going to give you an example. My wife has a defined head, and she always has an answer for everything. I mean that in the best sense of the word. I'm asked a question, my open head, I don't know. But she has an answer. It might not be the right answer, but she definitely has an answer. Where to go to eat? What should we do today? Her head has consistent access to that information. So just, if you're here on the chat, just post if you got a felt sense of your open head or your defined head. From a felt sense. If you can enter that experience of that. Yes, open. Okay. Yes. Yeah, Yarrow, my wife says yes. It's something that she and I have played with a lot because it's one of the places we don't understand eeach other. Even though we know, can I define again? Yes. So Yarrow, and those of you with an open head, have the privilege of access to your thinking, access to your thoughts, right? Again, they may be negative thoughts, they may be positive thoughts, but you have access to your thoughts. Yeah, so Lynn says her open head feels like being part of unlimited space. Yeah, so in that unlimited space, everything's possible, right? Except if we haven't cleaned our filters, right? If we haven't cleaned our filters, then that open head has all this debris and all this garbage and all this old, it's a storage unit. It becomes a storage unit. And, we kind of live as if, we've got this like a head of a hoarder we can barely make our way through. We don't have the space to be present in the moment to what's arising because our storage unit is so full of thoughts and beliefs that we've been told and identified with because our ego needed something to hold on to. Someone just said that they have access to all, unlimited, and have a defined head. So this is all, we're all in the inquiry of this, right? This is all inquiry. And I'd be really curious to know where that access comes from. If it comes from another open center or if it actually comes from your defined head. So my proposition, my belief, my experience, my curiosity is that the open head is a God portal. That once we clean those filters, there's nothing between us and all knowing, all ideas, all inspirations. We have access. In the diamond work, which I studied, we call it the diamond body, or the diamond mind, or the diamond body. Sorry, the diamond body. And it's the capacity to see everything all at once. It's like fly eyes, we could say. And I believe my experience is where I'm open is where I have the most access to that quantum world as space, as infinity. I'm not saying we can't do it through the definition, because even our definition, even our physical bodies, right, are ultimately made of space. But I just want to invite you to play around with and explore that your openness is where you know God, where you are God, whatever God would be to you, quantum field. So then with this openness, it's kind of crazy, because where we're open, that ego is going bonkers, trying to find something to stabilize on. And what I like to offer is that we stabilize on the space of that energy, of that center. So with the head center, for example, we stabilize on the space within which all thoughts arise. Now, any of you who have done Tibetan Buddhist practices, Vipassana practices, a lot of meditation, you know this space, right? You know this space. It's amazing. It's amazing to shift from identifying with your thoughts to identifying with the space within which the thoughts arise. And it's pretty simple to do. Not that easy, but pretty simple. So what does it take? It takes witnessing your thoughts. It takes becoming the witness, becoming the observer. One exercise I talk about in my book is putting your thoughts on a cloud. This was a Byron Katie exercise. Putting your thoughts on a cloud and watching them pass. Then the next thought arises. You put that on a cloud and watch it pass. Instead of engaging with the thought, instead of believing with the thought, instead of feeling like you have to do something about that thought, either get rid of it or do something about it, you can simply be the witness of that thought. When you do that, something quite magical happens. There's a stability. The mind stabilizes. I said at the beginning, human design was meant for these times, these stabilized times. We step into a quality of neutrality that's all-knowing. I don't know how better to say it, but it has its own intelligence of how to respond and when to respond. It's not, we're not talking about spiritual bypass. We're not talking about dissociation. We're not talking about leaving our bodies. We're totally present in our bodies as the witness. This is not about, this is not a whitewashing. It's not a, it's not about stopping. It's actually, yeah, somebody said allowing infinite intelligence to flow through. Exactly. It's actually more intimate with life. These thoughts, these ideas are actually objects between us and the quantum field, us and life. If that makes sense, just shoot a yes in the chat. So let's just take a minute and imagine or allow ourselves to see what thoughts are in our mind right now. And just see if it would be okay to witness them, whether you have a defined head or an open head. And what do you notice when you witness a thought? Do you respond to it differently? Does it hook you in the same way? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. This is just inquiry here. I know for myself, I had the thought, oh my gosh, what's the time? I've got to look at the time. We've got 10 more minutes. Okay. So I definitely got grabbed by that thought. Which is interesting to me, because I'm working with the idea that I'm living under time pressure these days. I just finished my book, and I just have a lot of things. My program's coming up. I just have a lot on my plate, and I have this thought, this belief thought that there's not enough time, and I also have competing thought, or a new thought that I'm bringing in, that, I live in a quantum 5D universe, and there's plenty of time. There's time for everything. So when I step back and I witness those two thoughts, the thought that there's not enough time and what am I going to do in the next 10 minutes, that like hijacks me. I go with it, I grab hold of it, and I tumble. I leave this moment with you. I leave the present for an idea that I need to give you something or do something. I go into the world of object. I leave the world of connection and subject, which yeah.
There was just, sorry about that. There was a question on Facebook: is the time pressure coming from the root center, like the time pressure that you were talking about? Or
no, I don't know. I mean, I mean, maybe it is. I'll look into that. That could be. That's an interesting question, where that root, the root is the pressure center. So again, the head is a pressure center. Both of those are pressure centers. So there's going to, with an open head or an open root, I don't have an open root, there's going to be pressure. So I think if I look at myself, the way I identify with the time pressure, it's a head time pressure. It's an idea time pressure. It's a list, making lists time pressure. And when I expand into that openness, I enter that presence, which is what I think we need. Going back to the beginning, human design was meant for these times. It's meant to bring us into the present moment. It's meant to bring us into who we are, how we operate, and how do we free ourselves? How do we claim our quantum bodies and free ourselves from the constrictions of living in time and space, in a constricted time-space identity. So I'm getting some questions here about the open root versus the open head. So in my book, I go through each of the centers and I talk about them as a God portal. I talk about how to work with cleaning the filters of the open centers. I talk about how to work with the duality of the defined centers. And I think I'm just going to take a moment and read from my book. I can take this as a little book reading time. Of what I wrote. Yeah?
I was going to say, that sounds cool.
Okay, good. So I'm going to read what I wrote about the open head as a God portal. And again, at the end, I'll show you. I've got this, you can contact me. I'm happy to send you a free copy of my new book that just came out. It's a big baby. It's 500 pages, 6x9. I'm happy to send you the digital copy, and you can look at your chart, see where you're open, see where you're defined, and see how to work with yourself, right? In the realm of duality, in the realm of your openness. There's lots of exercises, lots of tools that I give in that book to do that. And the link for the paper copy is you just go to Amazon, put my name in and human design, and it will show up. They make it kind of small, but you can click on that link. So let me just do a book reading for a moment, since we're doing virtual book worlds here. So the open head is a God portal. Reading from a different computer here. Once you have freed your mind of egoic conditioning and habitual patterns, you're available to enter the realm of the essential domain. This is the realm of being. Imagine that there is no separation between your mind and all of life. You step into a state of oneness through your mind. Innate intelligence is revealed. Your quantum mind opens a whole new set of gifts and possibilities. They may initially show up as flashes of insight. These states of awareness can, over time, become stabilized into what, and this is my teacher, Faisal Muqaddam, my diamond teacher, calls stations. So we can stabilize our mind from states of experiencing things into stations. This is part of the path of awakening, reclaiming our essential self. We've identified ourselves as a body or a particle. We have the opportunity to organize around and embrace ourselves as a quantum body or a wave as well. Full transparency, I speak to this having touched into it and witnessed it in others who are further along the path. I do not profess to understand it completely. I leave you to discover for yourself what is possible when you let go of the structures that define your thinking and directly open into the space of the great unknown. Here are some glimpses into the God portal aspects of the head center. You enter a state of oneness with universal mind. You can know all things. You have a mind at rest. So I'm going to stop there, and I go on to explain each one of those things. And basically that's how my book is organized. So I'm just going to stop the share. It's organized in each of the centers. We go through each of the centers, the defined centers, what the challenges are, what the gifts are, how to work with it, the open centers. Each one, I go through each center, how to, what the challenges are, what the gifts are, how to work with it. And with the open centers, I go into the God portal of that. So let me just stop the share for a second. And I'm going to look at some of the chat here. And hang on a second.
We're really liking it on the Facebook Live too.
Oh, good. Good.
Alicia shared staying empty and allowing consciousness to flow through my vessel and then observing it all.
I love that. I love that. I'm looking for, I just let my slides go. So I'm not seeing I'll have to pull it up in a different way. I'm not seeing my slide on, maybe you can pull it up, Cindy, the very last slide that has the link to get my free book. That would be great.
I did post that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Not the free book. No, I'm sorry. I posted how to get it. There it is. I've got it. I'm sharing.
Oh, great. Thank you. So someone is curious about the example I gave to clear the filter. And we just have a few minutes left here. Before I answer that, I just want to invite you to put in the chat a takeaway you've gotten from today. So what touched you? What helps you on your path? Is there anything new that opened for you as you look at your human design? Or maybe you're new to human design and it sparks you to enter into the world of human design. Just to post something in the chat. And while we're doing that, I also, okay, someone's saying, I appreciate that my open centers is places where I'm God. The way you speak about this resonates on a deep level with me. Yeah. Yeah. So each of us have a way of looking at this, and I look forward to hearing how you, when you interface with your chart, what you discover. Really looking forward to reading my book. Great. I'm so happy. It's being read all over the world. It's quite wild. Yeah. Hope to find why I react the way I do. Yeah. Yeah. It's a journey. This is a complete journey, right? This is not just a set of, this is not just information. It's a journey of discovery. It's completely a journey of discovery. Yeah. So, yeah, people are feeling inspired. So just take a minute and appreciate yourself as a quantum puzzle piece, as a quantum being, interfacing with the quantum puzzle of humanity. Allow yourself to have an intention around bringing your puzzle piece, your light to this, your dharma, to bring what you're here to bring for humanity. And that, let's just say a moment of gratitude for whatever we've received today, and that may it benefit all beings. May it be beneficial for humanity as we go forward together, because we are one mind. We are all in this together. Your puzzle piece matters. It's impacting the whole. My puzzle piece is impacting the whole. So someone says, yes, it really expands her understanding of herself and her potential as a reflector. Thank you. Yeah, so I really want to thank all of you. I see we're at the hour. It's 10 o'clock here in Maui, wherever you are and whenever you watch this, just to thank you for being who you are, for showing up on the planet at this time, and really invitation to live your greatest self, to live your quantum self, to know how magnificent you are and step into it and live it. And again, we do that from my perspective, by understanding our design and then meeting it, doing the work to clear our filters, to see where we're on that stick of duality, and how do we shift to bring what we're each here to bring. So with that, I will say thank you. And anything you want to say in closing, Cindy?
No, thank you very much. And I'm going to recommend you go read some of the lovely comments that are under the Facebook live stream when you get a chance.
Great.
There was lovely comments both in the chat here on Zoom and both links are posted. I posted both in the chat.
Great. I'm seeing all the lovely comments. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be stepping into my puzzle piece. It's not easy for me. I'm just going to say that it's not easy for me to do these podcasts and write the books. I have to come out of my mouse identification into my lioness also. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, and blessings. I look forward to connecting with you. Reach out if you want to find out more about my programs, but definitely get my book.